Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm joined by my guest, Richard Megson of ASAP. Richard, how are you doing?
I'm really well, David. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm good. A little bit throaty today, but I'm going to persevere and get us through.
What a
We're all
trooper.
good. I'm always engaged when we're talking about sales progression because it's something that has taken up much of the last 25 years for me, and I'm sure for you too. And we always start our interviews the same way because I can't believe people won't know who you are or the fantastic product that you offer. But for those that might not know, tell the agents out there a little bit about who you are and what ASAP do.
Okay, doke. So I'm MD of the business. We have been operating for 8 years. We work with agents all over the country, and our core proposition is sales progression. So we help agents with managing their pipelines, getting them over the line as quickly as possible. So our role, as we see it, is to release time back to the agent to allow them to focus on things other than sales progression, principally sales. And our focus is to get, as I said, transactions over the line quicker.
I know that ASAP has seen some brilliant growth since you put it all together in 2014. I'm assuming the great markets that we've had. I mean, we've been particularly blessed in our sector in terms of what's happened in the sales market over the past couple of years. What do you think has been the sort of biggest contributing success to making your business grow and that level of demand that you now faced with?
Well, it's interesting. When we started 8 years ago, from the bedroom of my business partner, Tony Hill, we've pretty much doubled in size every year. But when we started, sales progression was the sort of agents doing sales progression wasn't particularly commonplace. Some of the bigger agents had their own teams, but largely agents would either have somebody that would do it, but as part of another role. So the penetration of sales progression has grown enormously. And the last 2 years, I think, has catapulted outsourcing and things like outsourced sales progression, full stop. I mean, it's been an extraordinary couple of years on so many levels. But the net result of that is the property market has exploded. Agents have been struggling to manage their pipelines, and transaction times have extended quite dramatically.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about transaction times because I think that is, talk to any solicitor or give a solicitor an instruction. The good ones are managing expectations. They'll know the local areas, whether there's any particular delays in terms of searches or anything else that's peculiar on a geographic basis. But on the whole, transaction times have not been particularly great in the last couple of years, but you're sort of bucking that trend entirely, aren't you? You've managed to get to some transaction times that most solicitors or estate agents couldn't touch.
Yeah, transaction times and great shouldn't belong in the same sentence at the moment. The average market statistics are pretty damning. So the average from sale agreed to exchange, the common consensus is around 150 days. That is truly appalling. The pressure that puts on agents, the stress, the level of fall throughs, it's just bad news all around. We on average are 8 weeks quicker. Interestingly enough, that differential was the same pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, and this was a land registry report, sale agreed to exchange and completion 126 days. We were 77 days. So while we continue to be 8 weeks quicker, we are slower than we were, and that is disappointing. But I think that's just a recognition of the market we're in. So, you know, people need to be realistic. But you mentioned managing expectation. That is absolutely key. Clients need to know where they are, what is likely to happen, because, you know, a client expecting something to go through in 4 weeks, is frankly for the fairies for the majority of transactions.
So I have a referral for you. You don't know that yet.
Yay.
I'm about to send it across to you today, but I'll give you the scenario, the discussion that we had that resulted in this.
Yeah.
I was talking to an agent who had been sort of like a part of a high street agency at one point, now very much a one-man band proposition. There are loads of agents out there on those self-employed models now. And even if they're part of a network, really that network is giving them brand exposure. It's not necessarily taking care of any behind the scenes admin support. So they're having to progress their own sales. They're doing their own viewings. They are booking their own viewings, handling the inquiries, and there's just one person there. So how do they, how do they manage it? And what was interesting was I spoke to that particular agent, and he told me that he'd had 500 inquiries on 3 properties, and he had to respond to all of them. So we spoke about how, what products are out there to help deal with leads, and that's one thing. But the ultimate outcome of that conversation is, how do you respond to those inquiries, arrange and do the viewings, and also find time to progress your own sales? And I said, I've got just the man for you. And that's really what it comes down to. That I mean, I've tried and tested your services personally, so I can speak from strength, knowing that for years, yes, I would have said to you, sales progression is best handled in-house. But that's not necessarily the case, because it sometimes ties you up administratively whilst you've got active sales that you might be missing. So tell us now about the suite of services that you offer, because you've got 4 sort of distinct offerings that fit together, but there's something in there for everybody, isn't there?
Yeah. So when we launched, we basically offered something called what we called fully managed. We're repositioning and rebranding to a degree, which we're very excited about. But fully managed was involving conveyancing and sales progression. But that didn't address all agents' needs. So, for example, there were quite a lot of agents out there who wanted sales progression, but they wanted to use their own conveyancers. So we pivoted 2 years ago to offer a standalone sales progression service. And that would now account for about 25% of what we do. So what we're about to launch is really an extension of that flexibility, if you like, giving agents the ability to pick and mix the services that we offer, because that's a recognition that agents do things slightly differently. They have different priorities, and they have different things that they want to do in their businesses. So we're going to launch 4 new brands. Complete ASAP would involve anti-money laundering checks, conveyancing, and sales progression. Progress ASAP will be basically sales progression only. So if the agent has got relationships in place with solicitors, we don't cut across that. We simply do the sales progression. We are launching Instruct, which is a new service, which recognizes that agents want to keep sales progression in-house, but they need assistance with solicitors and onboarding clients. So Instruct is all around the ID piece and conveyancing. And a completely new service that is part and parcel of what we do in the broader services called Comply. So an agent can use us purely for ID checks, anti-money laundering checks, and client onboarding. And that's going to be a standalone service for those agents that don't need conveyancing and don't need or want sales progression.
And it's a great service to have, and it's so well with everything that's going on in the world stage at the moment, and the impact that it's having here in this country in terms of the tightening up of anti-money laundering regulation, particularly around property.
Yeah.
An agent can't afford to. I'd almost say you can't afford to do it in-house yourself, because getting scraps of paper and verifying it yourself is not the smartest thing to do, and it's best left to the professionals who have to do this every day.
Well, just to clarify on that, I mean, ultimately the risk under the regulations remains the agents. What we provide is basically a methodology and a process that allows them to follow procedures, and every client is detailed or handled in the same way. So it's really assistance with the regulations, but it's things that keep agents awake at night, because if you get it wrong and you get visited by HMRC, you will get fined. And those fines can be quite penal. So the best thing to do is make sure you've got a process in place, an audit trail that demonstrates that you're aligned to the processes you put in place, and we assist with that.
That's fantastic. For obviously, one of the things about using an outsourced service is that you might be forgiven for thinking that we're at your whim and mercy in terms of who you select, in terms of either solicitors handling it or the sales progressors. How local are your solicitors, and how do you choose the people that do your sales progression in terms of where are they coming from?
It's a really good question. So in terms of the solicitors, we have what we call our conveyancing network. So these are mid-size full service firms. Typically, we do have some licensed conveyancers that we work with. They would be spread around the country. I think at the moment we work with about 25, a slightly northern balance. In terms of the selection of, we have an SLA in place. So these solicitors have been firms that we know of. All my business partners and ex-conveyancers, so has got lots of contacts. They may have been recommended by an agent, which in these times is fairly frequent. So the minute an agent says these guys are good, we want to speak to them. And the third stream would be when we've been on the other side of a transaction where the solicitor's been extremely proactive and good at communicating. So, we've landed on about 25. We're continuing to recruit. So if any agent out there could recommend a decent solicitors, please ping me their details. We manage them, but very much on a partnership basis. Our retention of solicitors is very good, and we've got some great solicitors on our panel. In terms of the sales progressors, we've gone from about 20 to 25 people in our company pre-COVID to now 70, and the majority of the recruits are on the sales progression front for obvious reasons. And in terms of their background, obviously we were growing very quickly. We had lots of agents spiking. We needed to put our own capacity in place. So pretty much exclusively, a progressor joining our business now would have experience in agency and probably would have been a sales progressor in that agency. So we're training them on company culture and our systems, but in terms of the conveyancing process and what a progressor does, they're hitting the ground running.
Fantastic, fantastic. And the feedback that you're getting from agents and from sort of new converts to outsourcing, because it really does, it's a leap of faith for an agent to place it in the hands of somebody else, especially if you've been doing it, as many agents have themselves for many years. It's a relief to hand it over, but it's also one of those moments that you need that reassurance. But what sort of feedback are you getting? Because I'm sure you're getting some great feedback out there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we don't always get it right. Sales progression over the last 2 years, I'll make no bones about it, extremely tough gig. We've all been in the teeth of the storm, but a sales progressor might be at the coalface that bit further. But we have grown through recommendation. We started tracking our NPS score back in December, and I'm very proud that we're currently scoring about 80, which would be classified as world class. Excuse me. But yeah, we always want feedback from our agents. Our retention over the piece has been really strong, and we continue to grow. There's always the odd case that goes south and people are not happy about it. But what we are always dedicated to is communicating and making sure that we've got that relationship with the estate agent, so that the feedback is great. It's all down to the sales progressors that we work with, that we employ, and they're brilliant, bar none.
Fantastic. So obviously all your details are on the Kerfuffle website. I'm proud and pleased to see you at the top of the leaderboards in terms of overall popularity and also the feedback and reviews that you're getting. But people that want to explore a conversation with you about your new services, obviously we'll put them in touch and you can begin to have a chat. But how quickly, so if I said to you today, look, I like the sound of this, I want to get this up and running, how quickly typically can an agent be using your services?
Pretty much same day.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So no lag at all.
No, I mean, the onboarding piece is very quick. There's no setup charge. There's no contract. We encourage trial, and that's the way we've always operated. Because ultimately, you mentioned a few minutes ago, this is, I wouldn't say it's a leap of faith, but those that have not outsourced specifically sales progression before, there is a nervousness. I'm giving you my hard-won client, money penny pen, by the way, sorry. Yeah. Putting it down should be an ASAP pen. It does take a degree of holding their hands. Here's a trial. This is how we operate. This is how you want us to operate. Once you get through the trial period, you're engendering a degree of trust, and that trust just builds and builds and builds. But on day one, if they've never outsourced before, I would expect an agent to be slightly nervous about doing so, and we reflect that in the way that we operate in terms of no contract, free setup, and a trial period, at which point we can accelerate the relationship.
So what have you got to lose? Throw Richard your most difficult client today. Put him through his paces. No, but genuinely, I think if somebody wants to start by introducing a couple of cases to you and just to learn how, how you handle it, how it's helped them, but also to get the customer feedback, because this is working, it dovetails with the agent's own service and customer service that they're delivering. And test it, see if it works, and if it all works and it complements each other, then I'm sure you'll have a long and prosperous relationship. Richard, thank you very much for giving us your time once again. It's always nice to see you.
Pleasure, David, and thank you once again to Kerfuffle. Brilliant business. If you're not working with them, get involved.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks.